Hi, I'm Roy from Roy's Garage. Today I'm going to be working on a 1999 Toyota Corolla 1.8 liter. The problem is when I check the front end, the inner tie rod is worn out. When I shake the tire sideways this way and I look underneath, I could see the inner tie rod going in and out. The outer tie rod is solid. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to replace the inner tie rod, and I might as well change the outer tie rod, because if I don't and I reuse the outer tie rod, what if like 3 months, 6 months from now the outer tie rod goes bad? So if you're going to change the inner, change the outer. These are the tools I'm going to be using today to do this job. This is a 1/2-inch drive ratchet with an extra long handle, 1/2-inch drive extension, 3/8 drive impact wrench, small flat tip screwdriver. This is a 3-pound sledgehammer, a 4-pound sledgehammer, 21mm socket. This is a special tool to remove and replace the inner tie rods. Water pump plier. This is a ball joint tie rod separator, 12-inch crescent wrench, side cutters, long nose pliers, 14mm wrench, and a pry bar. Okay, these are the parts I'm going to be using today to do this job. This is an inner tie rod and this is an outer tie rod. When you go down to the parts store, sometimes there's two different brands or different qualities. You're going to have a premium one and you have the economy one. Don't waste your money on the premium one. Just buy the economy one, it's just as good. Okay, so I took the tire off. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to turn the wheel all the way to the right. So what's going to happen is it's going to expose the tie rod all the way out, so that way we can remove the outer tie rod and we can remove the inner tie rod. Okay, so now I'm going to be loosening up this lock nut. So I'm using a 12-inch crescent wrench to loosen it up. Okay, once we got it loose, now this cotter pin, I'm going to remove it. Okay, this uses a 10mm wrench. Just unscrew it, but don't take it off all the way. About that much. Then I have this ball joint and tie rod separator. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be sticking it right in between this joint, and with my 4-pound sledgehammer I'm going to be pounding it until it pops up. We're not going to be reusing the joint, we're going to be putting in a new joint, so don't worry about breaking the boot. If you wanted to save the joint, then I have to show you a different way how to take it out. But for now, we're not going to save the boot, we're going to pop this outer tie rod. Okay, so now I'm going to be removing this clamp. There's a clamp on the inner side of the bellows boot. They call this a bellows boot. So there's a clamp on the inside. So what I need to do with my pry bar, I gotta feel where they clamp the boot together, and from there I'm gonna have to use my pry bar and put it on, and I'm gonna have to pound it. I'm gonna break that clamp in order to get the clamp off and then remove the inner bellows boot. Okay, so I broke the clamp off. So this is the clamp that I took off. So this is the inner clamp that I took off. So when I was feeling for the part that they crimped. So what I did was, I got this pry bar, I stuck it on here, and with a hammer, I pounded it to break it off. Then I took it off, then I slid it off. And then we're gonna be replacing this with a tie strap. So what I'm gonna do now is, I'm gonna unscrew the tie rod end, and I'm going to count how many turns it takes before it comes off, so that way when I put the new tie rod in, I can just crank it down however many turns that it came off. Okay, so now we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 9, 10. So 11. Okay, so now I'm going to be removing the inner boot. So I'm going to have to just kind of wiggle it around and slip it out. Okay, take this nut off. And slide it out. So what I need to do is, there's this washer that is bent over to lock the joint in so it doesn't spin. So what I'm gonna do is, with my pry bar, I'm gonna have to open up the lock, put my pry bar right there, and I'm gonna have to pound it, straighten it out. This is my tool to remove the inner tie rod. It comes with a bunch of these adapters. So what you need to do is find one that fits in the slot. So this one fits right in. Then what I need to do, I just open it up, and then I'm going to slide this thing in, line it up, lock this thing in, and then I'm going to put an extension and one wrench, and I'm going to unscrew it. Okay, so now I'm going to unscrew the inner joint. So I'm going to put an extension on this guy. I'm going to use a 1/2" drive ratchet with breaker bar. And remove it. Okay. Okay. So what I needed to do was, this washer, it was bent over to lock it in. So with my pry bar, what I did was I punched it, and I bent the washer so I could loosen the inner tie rod. So I'm going to be installing this new joint with this new lock washer. So these little tabs, it goes right into the slot of this steering shaft. So what we're going to do is, we're going to put it on this first, and we're going to line up the washer with the slot, and then tighten it up. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tighten up the inner tie rod. So I'm gonna be using my special tool. So those washers, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be bending the washers to lock the inner tie rod in. Easiest way is use on this car, use a water pump plier. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bend in these washers with this water pump plier. Just to lock the inner tie rod so it doesn't move. Okay. So on this inner tie rod, it came with some grease. So what I'm gonna be doing is just applying grease right to the inner joint, just to fill it up. Okay, so now we're going to slide the inner boot on. If your inner boot is broken, put a new one on. This boot is still good, so I'm going to be reusing it. Okay, so now I'm going to slide the inner boot onto the rack and pinion. You can't see it, but you got to go by feel. Okay, I got it on. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a tie strap to clamp it down. So I'm going to be putting on this tie strap, and I'm going to be strapping this onto the inner part of the bellows boot. There is no room to install this from the bottom, so I might have to work it from the top. For now, I just do the best I can in here, and now I gotta go look at the top. Okay, so I got the white tie strap on now, so what I'm gonna be doing is tightening it up and cutting off the excess. Okay. So I tightened up the tie strap, so now I'm going to cut off the excess. Okay, so now I'm going to be pulling this boot outwards so this boot can go right over the slot and lock in. Okay. Then for now, I'm going to be putting the clamp on. Then we're going to be putting on this nut, the lock nut. This is a new one that came with the inner tie rod. Okay, so I'm going to be putting on the outer tie rod. So I'm going to be tightening this rod 11 turns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10, 11. Okay. So now I'm going to be installing the tie rod in. tightening up the nut. And using the new cotter pin, the one came with the new joint. Where is it? Bend this guy over. So last thing you gotta do is tighten up this lock nut. And take it to the alignment shop to have the alignment do the final adjustment. So that is how you replace an inner and outer tie rod end. If this is the first time watching my video, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up, and please share with all your friends and family. Aloha.